Jim, you have reason to be proud. For everyone who knows, we never stop talking. And so, Jim, you have reason to be proud. Good reason to be proud. 2023 was an amazing year.
Yeah. 2023, I found on the Facebook group, I posted a 2022 retrospective, just a list of all the stuff we did in 2022. And then I sent you that list for 2023 that we're going to talk about on this show. And I was like, wow, those 2 years is just a ton of stuff. And we're not going to stop, right? I mean, there's more of that coming in 2024, but just looking at that body of work that we've done over the last 2 years, super impressive. And I have a feeling that a lot of fans don't quite grasp the enormity of all the stuff that we've been working on.
I think they don't. I mean, I swear that in 2023, more stuff came out in just that year than the last 5 years. That's only because you made a list for me, which we're going to go through today. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this is the Continuing Conversations Year in Review episode 2023. I'm Michael Dismuke. I am a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures RPG, which I love. It's something I never dreamed I would be able to do. And of course, I'm lead writer on Captain's Log, something I definitely never dreamt that I would do. And I'm a blogger on Continuing Missions, which is the #1 site for Star Trek RPG. And I have to admit and give my gratitude right at the beginning of the show, because this would not have happened without Jim Johnson.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG and the Captain's Log solo RPG, both published by Modiphius Entertainment. Lo, these many years. And Michael, I agree with you. I had never imagined I would be in this position. I remember way back in the day when I was running co-GMing a Star Trek game with my friends. It was a homebrew. We didn't have Last Unicorn Games. We didn't have Decipher. We didn't have Star Trek Adventures. We just made up our own thing based off of FASA. And what we did is every season we would do 15 episode seasons. And at the end of every season, we would kind of do like a little cast party retrospective kind of thing where we get together, have some pizza and some snacks, and just talk about each episode and how things went. And in the third season was our last one. And in my retrospective, because I still got the notes, I'm a pack rat, I can't get rid of this stuff. I wrote, and this was 94. And I said, in my notes, I was like, I had such a great experience playing this game with you guys. I grew so much. I learned so much. I developed as a writer, as a storyteller, as a person, as a human being. And in those notes, I was like, and someday when I start writing Star Trek novels and short stories, I will go blah, 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 blah. And, I did some short stories, of course, didn't quite get on the novel train. Just, I missed some opportunities there.
Yet.
But I stumbled. Thank you. Yeah, yet. But I stumbled into this opportunity with Modiphius and Star Trek Adventures. And I'm like, you know what? This is a good place to be. So I'm grateful every day for it. And just excited to be working on this with you, Michael. That's been a blessing. The show's been a blessing. And just look at all this cool stuff we get to make.
Well, and keep in mind, you could write a novel, Jim, not saying taking away from writing a novel, because I dream of doing that one day too, but you could write a novel and people could read it and walk away, but you are taking the lead in corralling writers to create material, to create new writers.
Yeah. We're doing something even more diabolical. We're not writing one novel. We're providing all the tools so that thousands and thousands of people all around the world can make up their own stories.
I know,
and then share them with us, right?
Yes,
that's the best part, right there. Is like we get to make all these tools, and then we send them out into the ether, and then people make stuff, and then they post it online for us to watch and enjoy. And like, I know you're like me, Michael. You're a big avid reader. Especially with Star Trek, and now we get to read even more stories. We are enabling other people to feed our habit.
Yeah, and as they get excited, watching them it's like having children. I don't have any, but I have nieces and nephews. You have children, but watching them get excited over things we're excited about is the joy too, right? So 100%. So creating new fans is great. So today, what we're going to do is go through 2023 and look at all the amazing new material that was provided by Modiphius Star Trek Adventures, and I put them in order with a crescendo, but anyone who's watching this on YouTube is going to be able to see what we're sharing in the way of photos. Jim, of course, you could see it because we're sharing screen. So let's go ahead and start at the top. One of the biggest releases of the year, which people had been begging for. I think it came as a surprise to them. And it was the Star Trek Lower Decks campaign guide. Talk to us about this amazing 2023 release.
Yeah, this was awesome. I know it took a long time for us to secure the license to Lower Decks, but like the moment we got it, we knew, okay, this is an opportunity for us to do something fun, something different, something still very respectful of the property, but an opportunity to have a little bit more fun than what we're normally able to get away with. I remember you were super excited when I told you that we were going to take the gloves off and go have some fun, and we marshaled the forces, and internally to Modiphius, we thought about, okay, how do we want to do this? We don't want to just do a book. What else can we do? And of course, we had the crew packs that we could do. We did a mission brief pack, and we did a standalone adventure. We had a gamut of digital releases as well as print releases, or print release. We only did the one, but we wanted to hit a couple of different avenues. Get some energy and some excitement behind it. And I think it all came together really good. Yeah, you're showing the Lower Decks season 1 guide.
But let's give some highlights to the Lower Decks book and why people should pick it up if they wanted to, and how it enhances the game. Let's talk about that. So Lower Decks has been an introduction to a lot of people into Star Trek. So it's a spoof, it's a parody, and it's a wonderful canon. It's considered alpha canon continuation of TNG, right? So Lower Decks is not the core rule book. So we want to be clear with people. You would still need the core rule book in order to get the basic rules for Star Trek Adventures RPG. But what does Lower Decks provide as a campaign guide that's different than others?
I think it really provides newer players an opportunity to do something in the Star Trek universe that's not quite so heavy. You're not the captain, you're not the first officer, you're not a department head. You're a young officer finding their way, probably just like you're a player finding your way into the Star Trek universe and into the game. It gives you a chance to get in there, have some fun, do some stuff, and not have necessarily a lot of responsibility, right? And then you can grow into that over time if it's something that really catches your eye. It's certainly tied into the show to some extent. So if you've watched the show, you'll get the feel for the book. But at the same time, we added a lot of Star Trek lore into this book, so you could use this book to run a Lower Decks campaign that is not comedic in tone like the show is. You can do a original series Lower Decks episode where you are super serious, but you're still Lower Decks officers, right? So you can port this into any of the eras of play without any difficulty. And again, just a wealth of information that we tend to do this, right? We hide a lot of information in these books that you look at the cover and you're like, oh, that's this, but we're subverting your expectations because there's so much more in this book than just the TV show Lower Decks. And just remember, this is a 240-page tome, and there's just way more in here than just the animated series.
Well, some of the meat that we put in it, because when I have the privilege to work on these books, I'm always thinking like, what do I want as a game master? I've been a game master for 30 plus years. What do I want that's going to make the book valuable to me and make it so that I have to buy it? That's always my question when I'm writing something. So I remember two of the big sections in here, besides all the amazing characters and ships from the show that are embedded in here, was one, I wanted to focus in on second contact missions. What's the protocol for that? Because we watch Voyager and we watch TOS and we watch the animated series and Enterprise, all these first contacts. But what about the backbone of Starfleet? What about the people who have to clean up the mess that James Kirk makes? So there was that one piece on second contact. I wanted people to really dig into it. And then we know the Okudas wrote the now famous technical manual to how starships work, right? And I was like, okay, that's fine. But what about lower deckers? What's the HR? What's the human resources of Star Trek? How do you get promoted and how do you have a career in Starfleet? I've never seen that written before. So I was like, I want to write that. So I know me and other writers, we said, let's write the official HR book on Starfleet. So Lower Decks is all that for Starfleet Academy and how to make progress and how do you deal with family and what about HR issues that come up and what are all the different roles that not everyone could be the bridge science officer. What are all the other roles in there? I wanted to make sure that it was gold that went into this book that anybody, even if you don't even play Star Trek Adventures, you could still use as a basis for the game.
Yeah, this might be the only Star Trek RPG book that I know of that has a whole section devoted to career pathing, for your character.
Yep. Now one of the forward itself is in itself kind of historical too, because Mike McMahon, right? You got him to write the forward. Can we talk about Mike McMahon for a second?
Sure, yeah, of course.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, this is the person who's the creator of Lower's Deck. Is what's the official title? Creator, writer,
He's
producer.
a creator and executive producer, I think.
Right. For those of you who don't know, I suggest you go look up this free interview. It's on Delta Flyers, which is the podcast from Duncan McNeil and Garrett Wang. They do an amazing hour and a half interview with this creative person, and it's inspired me. He talks about how to write screenplays in Hollywood. But how did you get him involved with the Star Trek Lower's Deck campaign guide?
Um, as I recall, it was a very, very polite email to our Paramount contacts saying, "Is there any way on Earth that Mike McMahon might have the time to write a forward for our book?" And it just worked out that either I found out that he was an RPG, or maybe I don't know how that worked out exactly, but we hit his schedule just right, where he was in the middle of I think he had just finished post production on season 3.
Correct.
And was warming up to start season 4. And there was just like a window of opportunity there where he had the time to bang together a wonderful forward for us, harkening back to his D&D days. And it just worked out nicely. So it was mostly just, being professional and polite, and leveraging the relationships that we've built over the last several years.
That was wonderful, because I know he had an eye of reviewing the material in the book too, to make sure there was no conflict with the shows too. Correct.
I don't know for sure, but I think he was one of the primary reviewers on all things Lower Decks, not just our stuff. But I think he is heavily involved in all that stuff, because it's important to him. He's the executive producer and the creator. He wants to make sure that everything, the comic books, the novels, the book, the game books, etc., matched his team's vision. And anecdotally, I think we talked about this in the Lower Decks series of episodes we did. The Lower Decks manuscript was probably the one that was most heavily revised after getting feedback from Paramount. Not that it was bad, it's just that he and his team have a very particular vision for Lower Decks, and there was a lot of sections of the book where we needed to fine tune the dial to make it even funnier or less malicious. I think I've talked about the example of the Badgie sidebars. Some of the Badgie sidebars were not malicious enough, and then some of them were a little too much. And so we just had to work with them to find that fine line.
I remember how pleased I was, because anyone who watches our show knows that Jim always tells me to scale back on the funny and says, that humor is subjective. And so when he invited me to write on this book, I was more than excited. And I remember my question was like, wait a second, can I be funny? And he's like, yes. And then I was so pleased that after editing one of my chapters, apparently it came back from Paramount saying, you need to turn it up a notch. And I was like, oh my God, really? And I was just this is the best. I have to say, this was the most fun to work on. Lower Decks. So then talk to us again. What's in the Lower Decks season 1 and season 2 player characters bundles that came out later?
Yeah, so sure. So I think the long-term fans have come to understand this, but newer fans coming into Star Trek Adventures may not understand. When they buy the Lower Decks campaign guide, they're probably expecting to see the canon characters in there. And from the very beginning of the line, we made a very conscious decision not to put the lead canon characters into the books. Like you won't find Kirk or Spock or McCoy or Scotty or Picard or Riker or Janeway. Like none of those main cast characters are in any of the books. They're in the PDF supplements, but they're not in the books. And that's specifically because we want the game to be oriented toward your characters, the new characters that you're creating with your group, the new characters that you're bringing to the Star Trek universe, new lives, new civilizations, etc. We really wanted the focus of the game to be on the new stories that you're going to tell with these new characters. And if you want to go check out the canon characters and see how they compare to yours, and just see how, not to say that you want to see how you stack up against them, because like really every main character in Star Trek Adventures is on a very level plane, right? There's no power creep where you've got like, you're creating a first level character and Picard's a level 18 archaeologist cap. I don't know.
Unless you're lower decks.
Unless you're lower decks.
Right.
So the crew packs, then the season 1 and season 2 player character packs has all the main characters, right? So you got the 4 main characters from lower decks. You got the 4 or 5 bridge crew officers, the captain, the first officer, etc., plus some additional supporting characters, plus the ship, and so it gives you it gives you some more stuff to play with. If you want that, if you want the canon characters, like some people like to play canon characters, especially for one shots or convention adventures, and some people just like to use them as guest stars in their campaigns. So it's just it's an opportunity to get some more. To be shamelessly capitalistic, it's an opportunity to get more product out there, but it's also totally optional, right? Like if you don't want the canon characters, then don't buy it. It's okay.
It's okay. I love the Ferengi and you. We're infinite diversity, infinite combination. It's Star Trek Adventures. Good. Okay, let's keep going on 2023 releases. Now, these were 5 mission modules that came out. I'll go ahead and read them off. And then maybe, Jim, I'm always curious how you decide what gets published and stuff like that. We could talk about a little about these modules. I know one of them, I'll be totally vainglorious here. 8 Layers Deep was my very first module that I've ever written, even though I've written a lot of other stuff before this. This was my very first standalone module I did. We have The Sleeping Beast by one of my favorite writers, Chris McCarver, in the line. Children of the Wolf by Christopher Bennett. I mean, for those who don't know, look up his novels. His are some of the best novels for Star Trek that you'll ever read. And the fact that he works for Star Trek Adventures is amazing. Lurkers, again, by Christopher Bennett, which was the module that is based off of Lower Decks. And then A Piece of Kronos, Aaron Paulier. He plays in my game. I call him Star Trek Adventures lead science officer. And so let's talk about how you decide what you release when you release, Jim, on these.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll add, because I know that even though we're recording this before it happens, but this episode will air at the end of the year, there's actually one more standalone coming out this year. It'll be out on December 6th. And that's also by Aaron Paulier. It's another Klingon adventure called A House by Any Other Name. So that'll be out on it'll be out by the time this episode airs. So we actually ended up doing 3 Klingon adventures this year and 3 Starfleet adventures. And you can see we got an Enterprise, a Next Gen, and a Lower Decks era, and then the Klingon ones are all over the place. So nice variety there. Speaking to your question about how do I decide which ones to publish when, I would like to say that there's a plan behind it, but I will be honest with you. This is now, 4+ years in the works where I take pitches, I review them, I commission the ones that I think are going to work, and then they go into a development cycle. And for the most part, I encourage the writers to write them at their own speed. Like I rely on the freelancers to understand their schedule. The ones that are passionate will get it done quickly. The ones that are more deliberate will take their time with it. And to that end, I've got some stuff that I've commissioned years ago that I haven't seen yet, and that's okay. Things happen and things drop off. It's okay, because that's why I have such a big pipeline of these things in the works. So at one point this year, I had, I think, 30 briefs and standalones in various stages of completion at the same time.
Wow.
Right. But now, at the moment, I've got a huge backlog of stuff I'm working on, but also I have a bunch of pitches that I haven't even read yet. So I've had to take a pause on pitches because it's just too much with everything else that's going on. But so for a while there, I was releasing them as soon as they were approved and laid out and ready to go, right? It was just like, I need to fill that schedule, because we've been releasing one every other month. We've been releasing a standalone every other month. We've been releasing a mission brief pack every other month in separation from the missions or from the standalones, right? So it's you get either a brief or a standalone every month. And that release schedule is, kind of aggressive, but it took me a little while to get to the point where I had a backlog that I was working on, where I could be a little bit deliberate about what I was releasing when, right? I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. And I think a good example of that was Lurkers. We knew we wanted to release that ahead of the campaign guide. We wanted to build some momentum up for that, so to speak. So we had the character packs and then the mission brief pack for Lower Decks that you wrote, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a moment, and then Christopher Bennett's adventure Lurkers all followed up that as well. So for the most part, I'm kind of still in a place where, as the adventures are done, laid out, approved, ready to go, I'll add them to the release schedule, and then they come out. Right, they come out as they come out, and I think on the one hand that's nice because it gives fans something a little different to look forward to, that you don't know what you're going to get month to month. You know something's coming, but you don't know exactly what it's going to be. In an ideal world, I would be pairing up mission briefs and standalones along with whatever big release was coming out in that quarter. Like if I knew I had a big, Q1 release, I would try to do some mission briefs and some standalones that were kind of thematically linked to that. It hasn't quite worked out yet, but it's just a matter of
hasn't been bad though. You like the Lower Decks, I know campaign guide release, and the crew packs that came with it. You had, like you said, the mission briefs plus Lurkers, which I thought was really cool. And I really, in case people, again, I always assume people, this is your first episode watching. Let's describe, before we transition talking about mission briefs, what's the difference between modules and mission briefs?
Well, so the standalone adventures or modules, whatever you want to call them, this is a single self-contained story with 3 acts, a lot of detail, a lot of NPCs. Sometimes there's a map, some artwork, but it's like a single self-contained story with a lot of potential to either expand it into a multi-part episode. You can use it as a drop-in into your ongoing campaign. You can use it as a one-shot. There's just a ton of stuff in there. They're usually 19 to 25 pages long in that sweet spot. Usually 8,000 to 10,000 words depending on the writer, and there's especially the last couple of years I've been including a mission brief at the end of each one, so that you can run the main story and then you've got something that you can follow on with, or you can expand the story and continue it on. So a lot of flexibility there, hopefully. And then the mission brief packs are a pack of 10 one-pagers. And these are intended to be high-level outlines for a story that you can take, bend, fold, spindle, mutilate, drop them into your campaign, either thematically linked to a subject for each mission brief, or just as a standalone, whatever you want to do with it. And I think fans have really enjoyed this format. I think I tested this format out in the Klingon core book 4 years ago now, and people seem to like it, and I was like, okay, well, let's keep trying it. And you wrote the very first one. You wrote the one with the Enterprise, the Tales of the Federation, and that seemed to go well, and I just kept it going from there. And we're starting to play with the format a little bit. So instead of it being 10 briefs every product, maybe it'll be 8 briefs and 2 pages of of related material. So you'll see that in the coming months, I think, as we continue to mature it a little bit. But again, huge variety of time frames here. You can see we got Dr. Aaron wrote The Dangers in Space, which is all science focused. We've got a couple different ones for the TOS era. We got of course, the Lower Decks one, and then Michael Duxbury did a great one on Starfleet Academy, which is really tied into the whole life path, so that if you have brand new characters, you can start them off as cadets, go through the Starfleet Academy briefs. Oh, by the way, all these mission briefs, these packs, these are free.
They're free. Exactly.
We give this stuff away because we love our fans, and we want to get people into the game, and we want to kind of break down that barrier of, I'm not creative, I can't tell a story, I don't know how to put a story together. Well, here's 10 outlines. Take these and go run with them.
Well, I want to say too, this is an amazing year with the Lower Decks coming out. We were talking about, because you could start using the Starfleet Academy mission briefs, then go over to the Lower Decks mission briefs once they get out of Starfleet Academy into Starfleet, and then run anything after that. So we get those are literally 20 games, 20 games just in these free PDFs alone, which doesn't even include other modules and stuff that you may have access to, right?
Yeah, that's a great example, Michael. Like if someone was curious about starting a character from the very ground up, grab the core rule book, create a cadet, go through the Starfleet Academy mission briefs, and get them up to an ensign, go into the Lower Decks mission briefs and continue them along, and then get the Lower Decks campaign guide and add all that content in detail, because there's 10 more, 10, 12. There's more mission briefs in the Lower Decks in there.
Oh, 12. No, you're right. 12, I think.
So that's 32 adventures right there, plus the mini campaign that's in the Lower Decks books. Like, there's just like you buy 1 or 2 books and you're up and running.
What I've had to do in my game, and I've talked about it before, I'll talk about it now, is what I do is I run like a module and I use one of the mission briefs as my B story. Or I'll even take 3 mission briefs and make those into one story. And I use components from them. So it's very mix and match. I tell people it's really just so many ideas. You don't have to be strict to the modules or the mission briefs. You can actually mix and match the best of the best, but we're trying to really just ignite your imagination. And the things I've seen people do with these, and I watch play reports, everyone. I read play reports. I look at your Twitch channels. I look at the YouTubes. I love when I see everyone play these and mix them up different ways. So we're just giving them a lot of ingredients to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that newer fans to Star Trek Adventures may not fully appreciate. And, part of it's because I don't think we've necessarily done a great job of selling this. Not you and me, but I mean, just like Modiphius, I think, because there's so many products and so many product lines that we've got to work with. But like, as a Star Trek Adventures game master or Star Trek Adventures player, like if you're new to the game, you are jumping into a game that is very mature, 7 years old. There are like these we've got, I think, 14 of these mission brief packs out there that are available for free right now. Each of those has 10 missions in it. That's 140 episodes.
Yeah.
Right. That's almost the full 7-season run of Next Gen or DS9 or Voyager. That's a lot of story. Right. And then you've got tons of mission briefs in a lot of our books, the Discovery book, the Lower Decks book, the Klingon campaign, the Klingon Core book. Most of the newer standalones, like the last, I think probably 10, each have a mission brief in them. Utopia Planitia had more. So I mean, there's probably 300 plus mission briefs out there right now.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Shackleton had 46 in there, so we're probably closing in on 400 mission briefs.
Yeah.
Plus another 50 or 60 standalone adventures or mini campaign adventures that are tied together. So I mean, there's hundreds of episodes worth of material for Star Trek Adventures without you even having to create anything else on your own.
We're just playing, just in my game, we're playing year 1 release stuff. We just started Plato's Cave, which is an early release. Just give an example. And why I like that is because it's new to us. We never got around to it. And so these things are immortal. You don't have to try to play it along with other people. You can introduce it when you want. I mean, we played Shackleton Expanse stuff again in 2018 that got re-released and remodified. And when did that come out? 2022, 2021?
Shackleton was 21, I think.
Yeah. So and watching people who started playing it fresh was like, wow. So again, we're showing you a lot of in 2023 in review, but the point of the matter is this is new stuff, but it never gets old. That should be a tagline. Right. All right, let's go on now talking about some more. We
ended up just continuing. It just worked out, right? It just worked out that we got the Lower Decks license when we did, and it just worked out that this year was the 50th anniversary of the animated series, and it was a golden opportunity to really kind of make this the year of the animated Star Trek, because we did the Lower Decks book in August for Gen Con, and then this came out in September, and it was a really nice 1-2 punch, because one of the things I really appreciate about both of these products is the Lower Decks campaign guide introduces 8 new species, character species that are really, really different. And then the animated series supplemental guide introduced, I think, 8 more. Wow. Although I think 3 of them are reprints, so 5 of them. So between those 2 products, you've got 13 new species that are so different than everything else that's out there, and it just really expanded the scope of what's possible with Star Trek. And this one was a lot of fun to work on. I had a lot of fun with this one. I think.
I want to encourage people too to look back on everything we're talking about. We generally have episodes about it on Continuing Conversations. And if you want it in depth on any of these, including interviews with the creators, search up the animated series on Continuing Conversations or YouTube or the podcast you listen to this on, and you're going to get so many more Easter eggs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we got really lucky, and Aaron Harvey, who wrote the official guide to the animated series, and it just is a wealth of knowledge about the series. Was available to help be the lead, or was the pretty much the lead writer on this.
Mhm.
And he also did a lot of the artwork because he's an artist, he's a writer, I mean, he does everything. And so most of the art that you'll see in this book is all his original stuff, because he had some screenshots from the show, but he also just hand drew all this new stuff for us as well in the style of the animated series, and that just added just that level of
Yeah, I just had this one after we did our interview with him. I had one fault on the cover, Jim, that you did not sneak a pink Tribble onto the cover somehow.
Well,
Like it should have been under Kirk's foot. Like Kirk's foot should have had in the corner a little.
that's my pink Tribble.
Yeah, there's your pink Tribble. For those watching, Jim's
Yeah.
holding up his pink Tribble. So yeah, and this is what gets me. I'm a fan of Star Trek my whole life, and what our show does that no one else does too is we actually have been privileged in 2023, if people watch the podcast, to have creators. I mean, we have the science advisor, for instance, coming on, Dr. Aaron McDonald, who comes on our show multiple times. We have, the animated series, Aaron Harvey coming up. Like, we're learning so much about Trek. And when I go back and watch these shows, like now I go back and watch the animated series, like, man, I know the guy who wrote like the book on the animated series. And you learn all this stuff that playing the game gets you more involved. So really we become this little niche of Easter eggs, which is, I think, really beautiful.
It's super exciting.
Yeah, it really is. Cool. So this was, of course, a great release and just fun to read and reread. What about this? Now, what are all these little tokens and minis, Jim? What happened this year?
We actually started this. We started this late in 2022, but we worked with Paramount to make sure that it was okay for us to sell digital versions of our miniatures, because we've tried over the last several years to figure out how do we make the Star Trek miniatures like work financially so that we can produce them in physical format and then sell them in physical format that won't break the bank, right? That won't piss off fans. And like there's no way. We've tried to find the sweet spot and we just have not been able to find it. And so what we decided then was like, well, look, we've got all the digital assets. Can we sell the digital assets as STLs so that people can buy them, print them at home? And so we started in late 2020, I think it was November 22. We started releasing the sets and the singles because we had 8 sets of miniatures, and we gradually started releasing them out as singles and as packs. And then this year we finished the job. We got the rest of the sets out, so you can buy them as both singles and as sets. Like you can buy the Romulan set, or you can buy the individual Romulans. You can buy the original series crew individually or as a set, etc. And then as I was keeping an eye on the sales figures and seeing that there was a decent little market for the STLs, I floated the idea to the powers that be at Modiphius. I said, look, can we just like pick 3 new one-offs and just see what happens? Because like the cost for us to create a digital file is relatively low compared to like making it in physical format. And so we took the chance and we made it. We were clear that it was an experiment. So I don't know if you have a shot of it, but we created 3 new ones: a original series Klingon, a Jem'Hadar, and a Cardassian soldier, and just released them on the market over the summer just to see what happens. And sales have been pretty good, and we're still evaluating everything to see if we can do more. Right, like I would love to do more miniatures, but it's a real challenge because they've got to at least break even, and I'm just not sure there's enough of a market for it.
Well, it's an evolving market. Let's be clear. I mean, I have a friend who runs Gamey Builds, and if anyone has not gone on YouTube and seen Gamey Builds, that's GAMEYY Builds on YouTube, and seen what he does is he takes junk and he repurposes it into modeling, and then he creates a science fiction story around it.
Nice.
His hits, Jim, and merchandising and links from this are growing exponentially. It's actually becoming his major source of income.
Yeah.
And his use of the 3D printer now to free him creatively, he digs stuff like this. So I think what it is we're just early in the market.
I agree.
You're immortalizing people's accessibility that as they learn the game and it grows exponentially, that they, instead of say spending $2,000 on buying all these figures over 10 years, they could spend $300 on a 3D printer and have limitless stories. I think that's just the way the market's going. So I think this is a really good idea. I know just looking what's on screen right now with the original TOS crew, um, just to have those and be able to paint those and play with those to me is just like so fun.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the nice thing about the miniatures is that they are super flexible in terms of like if you're playing Star Trek Adventures, you got them available to you to customize or to do whatever. But if you're playing Captain's Log, you could grab any one of these singles and that could be your character.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong too. Can you correct me on something? When they get the STL files, these digital files, if they have the appropriate program, they can manipulate how they move and look, right?
I think so. I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know the technology well enough to know if somebody could take the STL file and manipulate it. I'm willing to bet there's somebody out there who's figured out a hack
Okay.
to do it. I just don't know myself because I'm just not. I'm not an expert or even a novice at this.
Okay, because my friend at Gamey Builds, he does that with Mecha, and he grabs it and he what's it called, a mask or something with I forget what the term is when you're doing the digital pulling and stuff, but he actually manipulates things to look like he wants, and then he 3D prints them, and he uses these as his base. So I'm just wondering if that's an option. We should probably have a whole episode on that one day, and we'll do that because I would love to get more into how these minis work and how people can utilize them. So you'll have to let me know who the designer is, and we'll have them on the show.
Okay. I will say one other thing, which I thought was neat because I didn't even know this technology was possible. But now, once I found out, then I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. Is that because these are digital files with the right kind of digital printer, you can scale these miniatures up or down. Right. So these are 30, I think these are 32 millimeter miniatures, like, your standard miniature. But I've seen fans who have made these at like 16 mil. So like they're little teeny tiny, and they've been making armies of Klingons or armies of Borg. And then I even saw somebody, I don't remember who, and I apologize, fan, tell me if it's you. They took one of the Borg miniatures and they blew it up to like 64 millimeters. So it was like this huge, gigantic Borg figure, like bigger than my water bottle, right?
This is amazing.
And because these miniatures were so detailed, even 7 years ago when the developers were making them, like all that detail comes out when you scale it up, right? And then you can get into the whole painting and the nooks and crannies and stuff. So like I don't know. I guess if you want one of these as a statuette on your table, you can just get yourself a 3D printer, blow it up to 62 mil or 64 millimeter, or I mean even bigger. I guess. I think there's printers out there that could do it, and I think the STLs are sold in a way that they're supported, so like you don't have to worry about them falling apart when the printer's made. You just have to cut off the supports. So you could turn these probably into like a multi-part miniature.
I have another question too.
Life size thing. I don't know.
well, I again, the reason I'm going to want to invite the person on the show to talk about is I'm wondering, can you take, because I've seen the digital files that my friend uses to animate. And so is it possible to take these and create animations with it? And maybe the next evolution for our people who do their post-play reports is that they use these and animate them into their own series. So we're gonna, I think this is gonna be part of our 2024 series, Jim. But I want to explore what we can do with this and what people creative solutions.
Oh, that's crazy! I love it,
because that would be awesome. Okay, so I think this is the future of. I think we will live to see the holodeck, and I think this is starting to advance us to that. All right, cool. All right, Jim, drum roll, please. I saved this for last. Talk to us about.
Gosh, is that everything? I feel like we missed something.
No, I bundled it all. I mean, we had a lot of releases.
That's a lot. Yeah.
So,
there's before we let me be respectful.
What did I miss?
Before we do talk about Captain's Log,
okay.
We talked about this in the previous episode, or one of the episodes coming up. We recorded a couple tonight. So in the last episode we just recorded, we talked about how hey fans, if you are a game master or a player and you want to get more people into the game and you are willing to run Star Trek Adventures at conventions, go to Modiphius, sign up to be a Silver Shield, go sign up to be a game master, commit to running the game at conventions, and we will send you for free. I'm pretty sure it's free. For free.
It is.
We this year in 2023, Al Spader and Alison Seib, I commissioned them to each write 4 exclusive convention adventures. 4 of them are 1 hour long. The other 4 are 2 hours long or 3 hours long, something like that. So they're variable length. But those convention adventures are exclusive to the Silver Shields or to the people who are willing to run our game at conventions and stuff. So go to Modiphius, go sign up for that if you want to get access to them. I don't know what we're going to do with those convention adventures. Maybe in a couple of years we might clean them up and publish them in a book or something. I don't know what that looks like yet. We haven't even gotten too far down the weeds on that yet. But if you're if you're the type of person who needs to have everything ever released for a line, that's 8 adventures that you're missing out
on. Good points. And I've seen them all. I've been able to go to the conventions and see them in play and hear a lot of good stuff about it at Gen Con. So that was really cool. Hey, I'm a freelance writer. I do this show with Jim, and I didn't know about it until I went to Gen Con. So it was a surprise for me. Nice. I found out I was not getting everything. So
always got some surprises for you. But I wanted to highlight that because somebody is looking at this episode saying, "Oh, well, that's not so much stuff," but 8 adventures, even though they were relatively short, is still a lot of work. And when you are, for the most part, the only line editor, it's a lot of work. So anyway, let's go to the.
I personally am going to vouch that they get released in form one day, because I would love to be able to sit down with my friends and tell them this is only going to take an hour, and see if I can create fans in an hour. That would be great. So
that would be awesome.
I'm going to encourage. I don't play them again outside of the cons because I haven't been given permission to. But that would be great. Okay, drum roll again. Right. Good. Introduce this. He hit the triple.
I hit the triple. Wanted to cheer for you. Captain's Log, the solo RPG. Nobody saw this one coming, and we kept this under our hat for a good long time because we developed this thing over 16 months longer ish. Long time.
There was an early leak. There was a leak with this.
It was almost. I don't remember.
You don't remember the flyer that came out?
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember. Oh yeah. Because we wanted to support Shore Leave Convention in Maryland, and at the time that we had to get the flyer to them early enough so that they could include it in their program. And at the time, we were like, oh yeah, the Lower Decks book and Captain's Log will be available for pre-order by the time that convention hits. Right. And something I don't remember. It must have been
well, they sent it out to distributors. They sent it out to stores to advertise, and then someone put it online.
Right. No, they went to the convention. They took a picture of the flyer. And they posted the flyer, and they were like, "Hey, what's this?" And we were like, "Oh shoot, we had to push the release 2 weeks." So it got spoiled a little bit. But then,
well, it was weird because usually Jim is very vocal online, responding to people. The whole team is, right, even the freelancers. Yeah. And then all of a sudden that pops up online and dead silence. We're like, okay, exit stage right. And people noticed the silence. Why isn't Jim responding?
Ultimately, it was a blip in the flow. The game came out, the books came out, 4 covers, a lot of excitement around it, a lot of press. I mean, there's so many people have been writing articles and reviews of this thing. Mm-hmm. It exceeded Modiphius's expectations. It sold out within 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. We had it at Gen Con. It sold out at Gen Con. Pre-order was super, super strong. This was doing it's a core book, but it was doing core book numbers for us. It was just so good. And I don't mean the sales were so good. I mean, the sales were great. But just the book itself hit everything that we wanted it to hit. For new fans, for experienced fans, for casual fans, for storytellers who love to tell stories, or for people who had creative block and needed some help to break through it, right? So I
want to go back to what I said about Lower Decks. I had the privilege of Jim asking me to be the lead writer on this, which I now appreciate what a horrible job that is. I'm just saying it's a lot of work. Okay. I now appreciate Jim's lead project management on everything after this. But I remember one of my biggest challenges was what's going to excite me about this book, and not just mine. Okay. Myself and Al Spader had a long conversation about this. Josh Allen, where this was his breakthrough RPG debut, had Allison Seib. we had a lot of hours of conversation about what would excite us to play this game.
Mhm.
Um, I refuse to ever settle for boredom. And so we poured our energy into this like anything. And I only can speak off the response I had at Gen Con because I had the privilege of being there for the first time in 2023,
Yeah.
sitting there signing book. I was actually having people sign my book because I was just so happy to have my name in something that I wanted people to sign my book. I got that from Jim, who encouraged me to do that. And the way this hit, I now realize there wasn't even a room there. There was not only a need for solo RPG Star Trek Adventures, there was a need for a book that teaches people how stories are written.
Mhm.
And this book transcends from what people have told me. I'm not quoting myself, I'm saying what people have told me. This book transcends Star Trek, that they could use this just to learn narrative structure and how to write a story. And to me, that warmed my heart because one of my biggest things in life, people know my side job, is storytelling in the workplace, storytelling to get a mission point across. So seeing that hit has been my biggest joy, knowing that we're going into, I think you said you had to do another reprint for the holidays, right, Jim?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So apparently that goal was met. And I really hope over the years that we see this keep evolving and creating not just people who play RPG, solo RPG, but creates a new um, generation of people who understand the formula of storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been so uh humbling and rewarding to see how many people have come up online to say, like, on my YouTube channel and on yours and everybody else's, um hey, I've been in a creative rut for a long time. I love Star Trek, I love to tell stories, but I just didn't know how to put one together, and this book has been the light bulb that has unlocked my creativity. And now they're so happy because they're telling stories and they're doing things that they love. It's like, we made that happen. Like how the hell did that happen? Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just so humbled every day when I read stories like that, because it's like, oh, it's so exciting to see people embracing it and having fun with it, and playing, right. Like you said, in previous episodes that you love to gamify things, and you love to get people playing. And I've always believed that, a lot of adults, we just tend to forget how to play, and then
Yep.
we get bored and unhappy and worried. It's like,
And
wait,
it's
you
and
know
the thing is, we've had epiphany moments. Again, people who tune into our podcast, we are actually doing our own collaborative play using Captain's Log. And I don't know if you watch the enthusiasm with which me and Jim go at it, but we playing this game are having epiphany moments and even modifying and creating rules on the spot to make it an even better creative exercise. Jim, I didn't tell you this, and we'll wait till our next game, but I have even more amazing ideas after our last gameplay about how playing solo RPG, we can even take it to the next level, and we're
Nice.
going to exhibit that. So I really want to encourage people, and something that Jim's pushed for years since I've had been working with him, is these books are only templates. They are not hard and fast rules that you cannot deviate from. In fact, we really encourage you to be creative. Solo RPG, I'm seeing people use solo RPG and chat GPT in amazingly, freakingly amazing ways, which I encourage for personal use, not professional use. That's a whole nother discussion I am not having here. But for personal use, I'm seeing people take these tools and have these amazing creative experiences. And I'm really proud to have been part of this, to see this launch with a major. I think this is we've discussed and I've looked around. This is the first major IP with a solo RPG that I
in
can find.
in this complete format, yeah, as far as I can tell. There might be one out there, maybe Vampire had one, I don't know for sure. But I think this was like the first full bore hardcover, dedicated, all in one solo RPG, specifically for a major IP.
Mhm.
And it's super exciting. And um, I was very proud to have worked with you on this, Michael, and the entire cast that you just mentioned. And I also want to give out a special shout out to Stephanie Toro. Stephanie Toro is one of the staff designers at Modifius, and she does a lot of the collector's edition, special edition covers. She's done the Discovery Campaign Guide collector's cover. She did both Utopia Planitia covers. She did the
Mesmerizing.
Player's Guide and the Game Master Guide, and she did all four of these. I mean, this is just amazing work. And I tell you, every time I look at that original series Captain's Log, I just my brain gets stuck into that pattern.
It is. It's mesmerizing. I mean, honestly,
I love it.
I was proud to see the mad grab at Gen Con for the original series because and I've taken a lot of photos of it. If anyone follows me on social media, I take photos with all my little dice and stuff with it. It really photographs well too. So the 4 cover designs was brilliant. And I really, I know initially we had conversations. Jim was like, no, this is it. But now it's like toying with supplement guides on a solo RPG is something that's almost funny to think about, but people are already demanding. I'm not predicting anything, but I could really see, where people want more random tables, and that becomes additional options. People could create random tables themselves, but we don't always have time to. But there is never an end to random tables. Like I love creating random tables now. They come up on continuing missions. I put them up there, but when you need writing prompts and if you have thousands of pages of random tables, no story can ever be the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have billions of combinations. It's crazy.
I would love to do more random tables and more supplements for Captain's Log. It's just a matter of figuring out what do we want to do and where in the world would we fit it into the schedule with everything else. In the meantime, I would say, for you grog nerds out there who've been playing RPGs forever, like there are so many RPGs out there that have random tables. I'm willing to bet that there is. In fact, I would probably challenge everybody to say, I bet there is not a random table out there for another game that you couldn't somehow find a place for in Captain's Log.
Always. Well, Star Trek, first of all, we were going to talk about this in other episodes. We talked about it before. There's no genre that is incompatible with Star Trek. So I brought in Jane Austen. We know I brought in my famous Jane Austen random tables. I have a lot of other tables I'll be introducing in future episodes of the USS Saratoga collaborative play that we'll be doing, Jim, just for funsies. And Star Trek is limitless for that. I mean, 2023 has been an amazing year for Star Trek Adventures and for Captain's Log. I wish we would have done this last year for 2022, but this will become a tradition for us, a year in review.
Well, we could always do one. if we ever have a need for a filler episode, I can send you the list, and we can throw a slide deck together easily enough.
Okay, you're right. It's not that hard, but time goes by so fast. I mean, for people to look forward, this is our last episode of 2023 that we're recording here. I know, crazy, huh? But 2024, I want people to know that as we're recording this today on December 4th, this will be our last episode for the year when you all see it. I've already got shows planned all the way through May.
Wow.
We have that many people coming on board to talk Star Trek Adventures. And I'm not going to say spoilers because I don't want to have someone get sick and then not show up if I say their name. But I'm telling you, the people who are coming on in 2024 is making me cry with happiness. Like me and Jim look at the schedule and we're like, we have to push that off, or we have this coming out. Like there's so much wealth coming out that Jim, again, I'm going to say one more time as we go into our second year of taping, that I never thought we were going to have more than 20, 30 episodes. And now look, we're 100 and by the time this airs 109 or 110 or something. Yeah.
And
we're good. We're good through May.
We got years of material that we can keep hitting.
It's crazy.
Star Trek is evergreen, right? I mean, and Star Trek Adventures is. I don't want to. Well, I don't want to. Well, you know what? I'm going to say it, right? Like Star Trek Adventures is never going to go away, right? Like even if Modiphius cans the line on January 1st, they're not going to, by the way. But if they did, all these PDFs are out there forever, right? The book. I mean, you won't. Never mind. The stuff is out there forever. That this is going to be. And you talked about this before. This legacy we've created that. Future gamers are going to be looking back at our stuff, using it as the basis for their stuff.
Yeah.
Or for new game lines or whatever.
What we talk about applies to the person who's been playing it for 8 years and the person who just discovered it. Right. Like I tell people, you can go back and watch our very first episode about the Game Master's Guide. It still applies. The stuff that's in there, the content that's been created here, and we can never run out of stuff to talk about, really, especially since we're active gamers.
Right. And but you raised a great point, Michael. Like you said, you were playing adventures that are 4 years old, but they're new to you.
Oh, no, I'm playing adventures that are 8 years old now.
8 years old, yeah, and they're new to you, but
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So like, you go back and watch. I don't think we did an episode on Plato's Cave, but I think we did an episode on that mission compendium.
Well,
So
the thing
go
about
back and watch
Plato's
that
Cave,
episode.
it's Marco Raffaella. We have to have that. We have to have him on the show because Marco Raffaella I did an interview of him
Mhm.
in a blog.
Right.
He's a brilliant writer. And
Yeah,
we
he's
have these brilliant writers who are writing novels who you are bringing into the game, or they came into the game and started writing early on,
Mhm.
that people don't understand the treasures that are in here.
Mhm.
And they're waiting to be discovered if you just pick up these modules and mission briefs and try to figure out, what was this writer thinking? Where were they going with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, it's fun. Like, again, our group is playing Plato's Cave right now, and I love Marco Raffaella as an author. And it's just like, why didn't I play this sooner? Well, we only have so much time, That's the problem. So we've missed a lot. So whether you're just joining Star Trek Adventures and Captain's Log now, and you're keeping up with current material like what came out in 2023, or if you decide, hey, I'm going to go peek back at 2017, 2018 and start playing, all high quality material, all enough to get you and your players hopelessly addicted, and you'll be hating us eventually because you're hopelessly addicted. We're better than opioids, though.
It's good. It's a good addiction to have, because it won't physically kill you.
Yeah. Cool. So good 2020 review. My gratitude today, because we do gratitude at the end of every episode, is to Jim. I know many people only see maybe on the show, and I get to see and hear from a lot more of you. And I don't think people realize what a hard worker Jim is. I don't think you all realize how he lives, sleeps, and breathes this for the pure purpose of making it enjoyable for people. And I always say we're a little selfish because, of course, we want people to enjoy this so that we keep getting more material so that we can enjoy it. So there's that little selfish thing. But Jim, my gratitude ending 2023 is definitely going to be to you. As we will see in future years ahead, I will always say you're one of the people who launched my career in writing for a major IP, and I'll never forget it. And I hope it'll always pay off for the both of us. So thank you, Jim, for an amazing year.
Thank you, Michael. I think it's always the hope of an editor to know that they gave somebody else the launching point of their career. So I am grateful for those words. I am humbled for those words. I am grateful. Thank you for that. I am grateful for you and for this podcast. I think I wasn't sure when we started doing this podcast that it would be something that would continue on for as long as it did, but I wasn't sure I would enjoy it. Right. Because some people may not realize it, but I don't like listening to myself talk. But I am passionate about Star Trek, and I am passionate about delivering all these tools to people so that you can go tell amazing stories on your own, and not just rely on the stuff that we're creating, but just like use it as a jumping off point and use it as inspiration, and tear it apart. Use pieces of different episodes or different mission briefs and make your own thing out of it, and then just be creative and make your own stuff. So I'm grateful for you, Michael. I'm grateful for the show. I am grateful for everybody who's ever come on to one of our shows as a guest. I cannot believe the caliber of people that we've had on the show, and that they just keep coming and coming, and it's all because of Star Trek. So thank you, Gene Roddenberry, and thank you for everybody responsible for creating Star Trek over the years. And of course, I don't say it often enough, but thank you to the fans. Without this fan base, we would not have this show. We would not be doing this game after 7 years or 8 years or whatever. And so thank you to all the fans for playing the game, enjoying the game, teaching the game to other people, running the game at conventions, running the game online, offline, whatever. You are truly the life force of this game, and I'm humbled to be in a position where I can kind of steer it along.
If I got to ask too, Jim, because we talk about constantly, we're on social media, and only a small percentage of people who play the game are vocal, and coming on social media. I'm begging people, just let us know you're playing the game. Even if you don't go on social media that much, just send a note or email or something to jim@modifius.com or Modifius, whatever. Send it to me on Continuing Mission. Just drop a note and say you're playing the game, because we wish we had a pulse on everybody who's enjoying the game. And Jim says it's that what we see on social media is just a drop in the bucket compared to who we know by sales is buying the game. So let us know, because that matters so much to us, how it's being played in all the infinite diversity and infinite combinations, right, Jim? That's my ask to everyone ending 2023.
Yeah, let us know you're out there. You don't have to engage in social media or anything, but just send me an email, jim@modiphius.com, send Michael an email, whatever.
Yeah.
Log into Continuing Mission, because I know you get a lot of hits on Continuing Mission. You've been you occasionally share the stats with me, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
More than ever this year. I'll send you those stats too. 2023 was a crazy year. August was the biggest month ever with the release of Captain's Log, by the way. Nothing's ever topped the traffic we had with Captain's Log. That was crazy. So I'll send you that. But yeah, people, just let us know you're playing, because then we know how we can support you and hear you and write what you want us to write and stuff. And I know Jim, again, is one last teaser going out, is there's things I remember Jim said, we'll never do that. But because of hearing your voices and you reaching out, it's in production. I can't say, those are spoilers. You guys got to figure it out. But the mind was changed because of hearing from the fans, right, Jim?
Yep.
So the more we hear from all of you, the better product we have to feed your needs. So you don't have to do the work yourselves. So all that good stuff. All right. We already said gratitude, so I'm not going to say gratitude again.
So much great stuff.
IDIC.
Live long and prosper. Happy New Year, everybody. Be safe, be well, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, 2024 coming up next.